What was expressway robbery is now become expressway insanity, the constant rolling over and giving up of all leverage to a for-profit company. Let's recap. Ed Humphrey was for the original deal because the schools had signed off. Claire Corcoran was not a commissioner when it was approved, and David Painter voted against the deal. It is almost 8 months since the commissioners approved the deal. We are a few days away from another set of missed deadlines for bond issuance, a perfect time to clean up the 6+ agreements and to get FC Cincinnati to re-look at school compensation. Expressway robbery consisted of $24 million plus or minus in handouts and incentives for 60-ish jobs at a private facility on which $10 million would be made each year by FC Cincinnati by selling Academy memberships. An economic development deal so bad it provides no public infrastructure such as road improvements and even requires taxing Milford citizens $46,000 per year for the exclusive benefit of FC Cincinnati. It was never competed for. This deal was shopped around until somebody would take it. Now, expressway insanity goes into continually giving up all positions of leverage again and again, including on April 17th when another 6 months was granted, without a single question from the Lackey Port Authority Board as commissioners watched. It's important because on April 16th, the topping out ceremony took place on the facility that is not even fully open. At that event, the Milford mayor touted the key benefit of the deal being bragging rights, and there was no visible commissioner or port authority participation. Now let's watch what happened at the commissioners meeting on April 17th at 11 a.m.
Thank you, Commissioner Painter. I'm Chris Hicks from 444 Woodward Court. And I want to give a shout out before the meeting starts. You guys have a prayer, and Jason Bowman from Solid Rock Church led that prayer. And I thought I'd come to a lot of these meetings. It's probably the best one I've heard because he talked about stewardship, he talked about leaders having wisdom, he talked about financial accountability, he talked about things that I think are important for us in a position of humility. So I'm here. I want to talk about what's going on with the Port Authority and FC Cincinnati. Let's just take a quick status check on where we are. For 6 months, over 6 months now, we've been collecting an increased hotel tax to fund bonds that do not exist. For land that we fake own as a county that involved no public funds, was double transferred through Milford because that's the only way you can legally transfer land to a port authority, and has rights of rescission built into it so that at any point in time, FC Cincinnati can say we're not using the land for the intended purposes, and it immediately reverts to their ownership. It's fake ownership of land. And we got a bunch of more revisions coming, including revisions that went through Milford Council last night. I gave you guys a copy of this flyer. It's meant to be a satire about the birding rash. What happens when places get affected with the birding rash? They start increasing taxes. They start lobbying for bragging rights for economic projects that never pay off. There's a couple, my wife does a lot of this stuff, and there's a couple I think particularly fun points on here. The guy with the wheelbarrow saying, here's tax money for your privately funded project. Or on the back, a guy holding his head saying, why do I feel like taking somebody else's money and giving it to a rich person? Or down below, two guys talking saying, why negotiate when we can just raise their taxes? So that's meant as a satire on what we have that I'd like to see stopped in our county, which is outbreaks of the birding rash, where we increase taxes when we campaigned on platforms of not increasing taxes. When we talked in our campaigns about opening CVB books, but then we take no action whatsoever to actually let citizens be able to see who was paid and enriched. So what happened that I think you guys should really consider before anything else happens last August. In August, you had a forum, and Commissioner Humphrey, you said you felt good voting yes for FCC because the schools had approved the deal. We have George Lucas, who's the board chair for Milford Schools, saying they had on camera that it was a take it or leave it situation. They had no opportunity to negotiate. It's kind of funny because in Cincinnati they negotiated pretty good. The Democrats in Cincinnati negotiated more than we did. When at the same time, I just have emails now that I've gotten from July 12th and August August 15th of last year, saying that the commissioners would not even consider increasing the hotel tax unless the school agreed beforehand. The schools had tremendous leverage. They got built. It's costing the kids a lot of money. And as you know, there's a bond levy asking for the maximum legal amount that can be borrowed in Milford that's going on right now. FC Cincinnati should have paid at least half of the taxes that were going to be due under this agreement. And now they're in a position solely because of action by the commissioners and the Port Authority to pay nothing while supposedly kids have needs. Now today at 2 o'clock the Port Authority meets. The agreement that's on their agenda to be considered was only approved last night by Milford. It was only publicly available yesterday in Milford. Who's looked at it? Who's read it? What public has had a chance to even see these new changes? I haven't. I actually have them. I got them via records request, not because they're posted anywhere. I haven't even had a chance to read them. Okay, but at 2 o'clock today, our Port Authority is supposed to approve this. I say stop it. Stop it. With the 6 months of taxes sitting in an escrow type account, with realizing that the schools were built and told that there was a take it or leave it deal when you guys would not have considered the deal had they not pre-approved, it's time to step back a little bit. It's also time to make sure that the citizens have a chance to see agreements before they're passed and approved. Last year, on December 10th, the Port Authority approved an agreement. They met on December 18th. They never discussed the meeting on the agreement on December 18th. Sam DeBonis and Andy Koopta just signed the agreement. There was no discussion, no vote, no anything. At least I'm glad to see it's on the agenda. But we need to stop these things. We need to show some spine. We need to use the opportunities that we have to negotiate. That's what happened in Cincinnati. Every step of the way, people stood up for the rights of their constituencies. It's time for us to stand up for the rights of our taxpayers. Now, there's people on this commission. Everybody knows that I am a pro-Trump person. And there's people on this commission that say they're pro-Trump people. Maybe all of you say you're pro-Trump people. This is art of the deal. This is art of the deal. Okay? What kind of deal have we struck for our constituents? Our constituents are the taxpayers, not Jeff Birding. Okay? Our financial responsibility is about good deals, not bragging rights, which was said a lot in the top-out ceremony the other day. Bragging rights. That's what's so great about this deal is we get bragging rights. So I have purchased this book to give to Commissioner Painter, and you have to share it with the other commissioners, okay? I don't know that you guys have read it. You should. You should. Okay? Let's negotiate a little bit while we have the opportunity with FC Cincinnati. Let's negotiate. Let's make sure that the Port Authority that's under the auspices of the commissioners doesn't go running half-cocked into approving deals when nobody's looking in meetings that nobody knows about for agendas that I just got today for the meeting on agreements that nobody's had a chance to review. So I thank you for the chance to participate. And as I walk away, Commissioner Painter, this is my gift to you. Share it with your colleagues. I encourage you to read. I encourage everybody in government should read this book, Art of the Deal. Thank you guys very much for the chance to talk.
Thanks for coming today. Thanks for the present.
Thank you.
Good to
Thanks,
see
sir.
you. You bet.
Now let's watch what happens at the Port Authority Board meeting on April 17th at 2 p.m.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board? You're welcome, Mr. Hicks.
Thank you, Loretta. So board, again, my name is Chris Hicks from 444 Woodwood Court. And I raced here because I just found out about this, authorizing the execution and delivery of an amendment to one of the, I think, 6 or 7 agreements now in our spaghetti maze of FC Cincinnati agreements and deals. This was just done last night at Milford Council. The citizens haven't had a chance to see it. Even citizens in Milford haven't seen any of this. We have a situation where a tax has been collected for 6 months for bonds that should never have been enacted until there were bonds to service. In addition, we have a situation in which what I would describe as property laundering has taken place, where back in December you received property with no public funds involved, via a double transfer through a government entity, because the only way you can receive property as a port authority is if it comes from a government entity. But it's not even a legitimate ownership of the property because it is encumbered by rights of rescission that allow FC Cincinnati to take the property back whenever it wants effectively within that. So this is a great time to step back. It's also a great time to not just be a lackey board and to really do the due diligence, because the deal is now so far into it, with the topping out ceremony taking place just the other day, with nothing really behind it. You guys have done the things that have caused the giving away of potentially up to $24 million worth of tax over 20 years by receiving property when obviously key parts of the deal didn't work. Now, two other quick things I want to bring up, and I told a couple of these whispered in your ears. I just found out on the way here that a lawsuit just got filed at Common Pleas Court with Milford school boards over their improper open meetings that took place over this deal. If we remember, Milford schools, the commissioners who are all three sitting here, one of them, particularly Mr. Humphrey, stated that he felt he could vote for the deal because the schools had approved it. The schools claim, Mr. Lucas, who's the school board president, claims on camera a couple times that they had a take it or leave it situation. There was no option. The county was going to move forward. Recent emails that I've gotten possession of show that the commissioners said they weren't going to consider any deal unless the schools had agreed beforehand. Schools had all the leverage. You now have all the leverage. I haven't even had a chance to really read this document. I got it last night. I got this morning, but I got a copy of it last night through Milford via records request, because the people in Milford haven't had a chance to see it either. What I noticed though about your Port Authority resolution, now there's a new lawsuit just got filed, and I haven't even read all of this, but I noticed Section 3, compliance with open meeting law. Now we know that on December 10th, Mr. DeBonis and Mr. Kupta signed off on a major agreement change with no board consultation on December 18th that was not discussed before the board. I brought that up then as well, but I love this section, Section 3. Compliance with open meeting law. It is found and determined that all formal actions of this board, talking about you, concerning and relating to the adoption of this resolution were taken in an open meeting of this board, and that all deliberations of this board or any of its committees or subcommittees or other public bodies of the Port Authority that resulted in such formal actions were meetings open to the public in compliance with law. Well, what happened on December 10th? What happened on December 18th? So I'd ask you that it's ridiculous to have, after sometime between 7 and 8 o'clock last night, Milford approved something, 2 o'clock today, without anybody really being able to see it unless they're on top of it like I am, to know what's going on. It's time for a reset in this deal. It's time to act a little bit more like, I hate to say this, Democrats in Hamilton County, who didn't totally forget that their responsibilities are to the citizens, not to a feel-good deal, or not to, as it was said at the topping out ceremony, bragging rights. Bragging rights. So I thank you for the chance to speak before you. If I were you, before I take any action, I'd at least get, I haven't even seen it, I just was told it. It was a surprise to me that there was a lawsuit filed just now, like within the last, I suppose sometime this morning, got filed in Common Pleas Court. It's not yet on the system. But also, I think people in this room know that this open meeting stuff is a lie. I think you also know that the notion that there aren't legal actions encumbering these deals is also a lie. So I'd ask you to pause, not take action today, step back, let people get familiar with what's in these documents, and let the commissioners work on what's going to happen with the hotel tax, and then do this the right way and clean up all these agreements. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks.
Brief explanation, and then Pat Woodside with Frost Brown Todd can add any additional information if he feels it's needed. All that this document does is authorize the extension for a section in the agreement to a later date of October 31st of this year, of when the city will take all necessary and reasonable steps to ensure the securities are issued in the amount of $3.5 million. All it does is move out the date by which they are committed to issue their securities. Anything else to add to that?
No, the cooperative agreement was really just a blueprint for the various parties' obligations and rights in connection with the project. As Andy said, there was a deadline for the city to issue its debt because of some circumstances outside of the control that has been delayed, and they have requested that deadline be extended to October 31st, 2019. And because the Port Authority was a party to that agreement. When to amend it, the Port Authority needs to execute that amendment. But again, there's nothing to extend the deadline for the city.
Note that not a single question was asked, such as, what happens if we don't approve this? Why do we need to do it now? How can we own property when the real owner can take it back at any time? Did someone mislead Milford Schools that they had to agree or get nothing? And finally, why haven't we ever gone over the deal Sam DeBonis of Park National Bank and Andy Kupcha signed off on 12/10/18 without any Port Authority Board review or vote?
Madam Chairman, Resolution 2019-0, resolution authorizing execution and delivery of the First Amendment to Professional Sports Facility Cooperative Agreement in connection with FC Cincinnati Professional Sports Facility Project and approving related matters. I move this be adopted.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a roll call?
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Mr. Parsons?
Yes.
Mr. DeFisher?
Yes.
Ms. Murphy?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And while it played out, the commissioner sat by and watched, leverage slipping away again. What is it that Donald Trump has said about politicians negotiating bad deals? What did Trump do with NAFTA and TPP when he had leverage? He renegotiated for a better deal.